Hello and welcome back. This is David from the Personal Finance Squad. We just finished up section 5.2 where we went into consumption rate. Consumption rate also mixed in with unit pricing. Question being, is it always best to purchase something because the unit price is more favorable over a competing product? And the answer is not always yes. So that gets us into section 5.3 of buying in bulk. Okay, so let's get our pen here. You know, you hear that phrase if you've been living under a rock, then you definitely have not heard of Sam's and Costco. But these two are certainly probably some of the most popular bulk warehouse organizations on the planet. You can certainly buy in bulk at all kinds of grocery stores, but that's their model. So of course, buying in bulk for less than an overall cost than buying in smaller quantities at the grocery store. So they're pretty good about checking and knowing that if they sell something, that in most cases the grocery store is not going to compete on that product for a smaller price. It doesn't mean it can't happen, but in general, if they didn't do that on a regular basis, then people wouldn't shop at those warehouse clubs. So another piece of information in here is we talk about a membership. They usually, as far as I know, has not changed. I have a Costco one in my household, meaning that you're going to pay something. So the range is about I think it might be $55 for a Costco. I have an executive membership at $110, and then certainly get a cashback element for purchase. So Costco offers an executive membership. So that's what I just mentioned, at 2% back, cashback on purchases, gasoline. I have the American Express Costco card, so I get a rebate from them, and I get a rebate from Costco. Of course, now, by the time you read this video, Costco with American Express, that relationship is severed, and so that will now be Visa, just for purposes of information being correct. Another great value of buying in bulk, which is not the food we're talking about, but is certainly the gas. Typically, I see the gasoline being 15 to 20 cents cheaper than I see at the local stations on the road, so there's a benefit there. Again, this is an important factor, of course. It certainly does not replace the grocer. The grocer has many more items on the shelves than these clubs would have. But if there's things that you like and you need them in bulk, and one of these stores has them, then more than likely that's probably a better path for you to follow. And that gets into unit pricing, right? So we want to talk about consumption examples. And we went into toilet paper. Everybody on the planet has to use toilet paper on a daily basis. So let's get into Jasper, and he says, you know what? There's 12 rolls, and each roll has 350, and each roll lasts 6 days. Now, it's kind of funny to say, how long does my toilet paper last? But this isn't necessarily food, but a lot of times things like toilet paper, and hair care products, razors, anything of that nature is oftentimes reflected as part of the grocery bill. We can see here that we, furthering our example, we have 350 sheets divided by 6 days, 58 sheets per day. 6 days times 12 rolls is 72 days. Now we get into there's 365 days in a year, divided that by 72 days. And then the math says it's just a hair over 5 trips a year. So that's 5 packages of toilet paper a year. And to get a little more finite, 0.422 trips a month, which is really about every other month. So I'm going to just remove this for now. This doesn't matter. Okay. So now you have to compare the grocer to, or wherever you're buying your toilet paper, to the warehouse club effect. So I think we got a little typo in here. Let's put this back. Thanks for being patient. Okay, so now we know the consumption, right? Consumption is the same no matter what. But now the grocer's not going to sell the same amount of rolls in a package that the warehouse club would. So you can see why that's why a 12-pack is probably usually what you see there, or smaller. And now the toilet paper at the club, in this case, we're using 30 rolls. And I believe actually what I just bought the other day is 30 rolls. Now you find out that there's sheets per roll are different. There's a 75 sheets per roll difference. And you can see at the grocer, the trips per year come out to 5, warehouse club 2, and you can see the cost per pack is certainly Big difference here. So, little quick math. We see that at $6.99 per pack at 5 trips, at the total cost of TP for the year would be $34.95, and at the warehouse club, $29.98. So right off the bat, we know the cost is cheaper at the club. But now let's find out if the rest of the math works out. So we can see right here that we can take the warehouse club example here at 425 sheets, 58 sheets per day, 7.32 days. So now we get 7.32 days times 30 rolls. So this is per roll here, sorry. 269, or roughly, let's just say 220 days to knock out the 30 rolls. And then, of course, we divide that by 365, and it's 1.66 trips a year. So we got to raise that up to 2 trips. And that's what we see in our grid up here. So let's clean that up just a little bit so you can see it. Okay, so now we go back to the grocer. This is right here. And we see that we take this 7.32 here, we go by 60 rolls, and that's 439 days. So this is getting really deep into some math, but if you want to see the exercise here, then we're just going to run its course. So you can see that in year 1 there's 2 purchases. Year 2 there's 2 purchases. In year 3 there's 1 purchase, and that's because due to the excess toilet paper carrying over the 1 purchases made in the year, thereby creating a savings of $24.93 for that year. And what we're saying here is that you have extra from the first 2 years. There's a carryover here into year 3, so you start this year with some extra paper, and that's why you have enough to actually only have to have 1 purchase. Okay, so you can see here that year 1, year 2, year 3. That's the cost. Now we have to look at a few things and say saving $24.93 is good, and that'll be saved. Now the consumption was based on an individual. For a family of 5, it would produce $124.65 in savings in year 3, based on the same consumption rate. And the trips to the grocery store would be 15, and only 5 for the warehouse club. So in this case, the math is pretty obvious. Seeing that the toilet paper was a no-brainer, if we go down here, we can see a list of many other things on here that you can save money on at the club. There's apples, cereal bars, eggs, so that's breakfast stuff. There's meat, such as chicken, of course, and lunch meat, and there's ground beef, and there's just several things if you look at all of them. These are many of the staples that people buy every day. That's why they're doing it, because they can provide it at a lower cost in most cases than the grocery store. So in the case where you find this cheaper than the grocery store, then you should go for it. You just have to make sure you manage your money. Oftentimes you'll hear people say, hey, I went to the warehouse club and I spent $300, and every time I do that I just keep blowing so much money. So you still have to manage the money that you have. You just have to buy it responsibly and make sure you buy things that you need based on consumption and unit pricing that we've spoke about earlier in the chapter 5 of the grocery bill. Another little quick note here, you can see that it does come with a cost. So in this case, if it was $5.29 that you saved for the year, you'd actually take off that $50, would be $4.79. So nevertheless, if this were even true in this hypothetical case, you'd be saving $40 a month just on the groceries alone. So imagine that over several other things. So if we go down here a little bit, gasoline and auto insurance and HVAC systems and garage doors and water softeners. There's so many other things that you get at these clubs that, again, if it is cheaper for you, then you should purchase it. That really is a no-brainer when you add it up. That's why these clubs exist. Okay, so that's going to end it for this section, and we appreciate you joining, and we will see you in the next video.